So welcome to episode 250, Mark's Improbable Road to Midlife Mastery. This wasn't my idea, episode 250, talking about my road to where I am today and why I do what I do. It was my, it's my marketing team's idea because we're in the middle of compiling and writing Mastering Midlife, the podcast book, with the excerpts from interviews and from my solo podcasts, and then me writing in between each chapter, why these things are important and what it means to mastering midlife. And the team decided, hey, Mark, why don't I actually said something to them about my improbable life. Like there was no reason for me to ever be anything that I am or have conveyed myself to be on the podcast and in life. And they wanted me to tell that story. So if you're listening to this, it means I'm telling that story, and I deemed it okay enough to share, but I'm a little nervous. It's very vulnerable to talk about this. So when we're talking about mastering midlife, I want everybody to remember I'm saying mastering midlife as it's a verb, mastering, not mastered midlife, not master midlife. You're not going to, when you go through my workshops or when you listen to this podcast or when you read the book when it comes out, you're not going to master midlife. You're going to be mastering midlife. What I'm giving, what I think I'm giving, what I'm hoping I'm giving are the tools that you need to be open to the gifts, the challenges, the scary, the joy of this chapter of life. People, whenever I'm on another podcast, someone will ask me, so define midlife. And for me, midlife isn't an age. It's when what was working no longer works and you need to replace it with something new. Life starts to tell you that something needs to change. Remember, midlife crisis happens when you don't listen to that voice that tells you something needs to change, right? So all we know to do is either anesthetize it and acquiesce and just stuff it all down, or blow everything up instead of opening ourselves up to the challenges, to the opportunity that is presenting itself with the change when we get sick, when a job changes, when our responsibilities change, our kids go away. Those are all opportunities. They're challenges. They're painful. They're joyful. They're all the above. So let's go to my story a little bit. For me, I remember about 10 years ago when I first became a coach, a friend of mine, Russ, if you're listening, yes, this is you. We went to lunch, and when he found out that I was going to be an executive coach, or I was doing coaching, forget the word executive, he said, how are you going to help anyway? You're so fucked up. How are you going to help anybody? And I didn't have a great answer for him at the time. But what I did know was part of it was because I had been so messed up, because I had made all the mistakes, that I had the compassion, the openness, and some of the wisdom that could help people. I didn't really have a great comeback for him. I was more hurt than anything else. But in hindsight now, my story is why I do what I do. All right, again, we're gonna do the things that are vulnerable and revealing. So one day I was sitting on my cushion meditating, and it was about 3 years ago. I was just sitting and meditating, and I just felt grateful, and I said, God, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do what I love to do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, giving me a platform. You were really, in spite of all my shortcomings, in spite of all the ways I screwed up my life, and in spite of all the things I did wrong, thank you for choosing me to do this. And a voice as loud as thunder and enough to make you think I was insane said, I chose you because of your shortcomings. I chose you because of the way you screwed up your life. That's why I chose you. That's why you're the guy to do this. And I was just sat there with my mouth open, sitting on my cushion, because I had never had that thought. I had never had that thought that the scars that I wear are why I'm good at what I do. When people give me feedback from the podcast, from and my speaking for whatever it is I do, and hopefully you feel this way, it's because there's a piece of humility in how I got all my scars, and then some power in how I use those scars to move forward. So let's go into the story a little bit of me. Uh, I wasn't a great going concern when I was a kid. I had a lot of smarts. I had a lot of potential. My mother always used to say, "You're going to be the first Jewish president of the United States." But I was a bit of a mess, and as soon as drugs and alcohol were added to the mix, I was off to the races. So at 13 years old, smoking pot, drinking, and all the while also being molested at the time by adults, by another kid in the neighborhood who was older than me. Um, I didn't really stand a great chance of being a going human concern. So going through high school, and then trying to go through college. Once I got to college, um, I couldn't hack it. I couldn't do it. I could not drink and go to college at the same time. I was always impressed with people who could get a college degree and drink. I couldn't. I got a job at a bar. Cocaine was was everywhere. This was back in 1980, and I spent the next several years uh, drinking, drugging, partying, just sex, drugs, rock and roll, for quite a few years. And it wasn't until I was 27 and wound up homeless and living in my truck, that sobriety and a change of life. So I could call 27 midlife. As I was homeless, I was 130 pounds. I drove to Washington, D.C. to get money from my brother, wound up staying, going to AA, going to NA, and getting sober, gaining some weight, and going through college. And as that time went on, I got a college degree. It took me almost till 40 to get a college degree, but I went to college and I did that. Um, I went from waiting on tables and bartending to professional jobs. I got married. I had 2 kids. I went from making $27,000 a year to making $50,000 a year to making $125,000 a year to making $250,000 a year to making $500,000 a year. From driving a beat up old car to driving a Lexus convertible. The Tony Robbins kind of story. Basically, I went from homeless to millionaire, short Jewish Tony Robbins. My life started to work. So my midlife was getting sober. What was working in my life, or what was not working in my life, was this pathology for drugs and alcohol and sex and just destroying myself. Then getting sober and building a life together. And then I had my second midlife when my marriage just wasn't working. My ex and I fought constantly. We loved each other, we cared about each other, but we are just oil and water when it came to relationship. And a lot of it had to do with the hurts from our childhood, me being molested, her issues, and that didn't work out very well. And at the same time, I got really, really sick, and my career was in the toilet. I could not sell a thing. So that was my second midlife crisis. That was my second midlife, and we separated. And we were both very depressed when we did that, because we really thought family was everything. So the first part of the improbability of my life was I was not a going human concern up until the time I was 28 years old, 27 years old. I was a mess. I remember going to a workshop once, and the woman said, Mark, on a scale of 1 to 10 in functioning in life, you're a -2. I still remember this to this day. As a going human concern, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a -2. So all right, so we get sober, and I'm making money. Like, I didn't grow up with money, so having $1 million house in a lovely neighborhood, sending my kids to these affluent schools, driving a convertible, wearing Hugo Boss suits, like that just was like a whole new world for me. And then when it all came crashing down, it wasn't sustainable for me. There was still some, I guess, childhood stuff that was pushing me through. This next midlife was, I was 46 or 47 when I got sick, couldn't sell, career in the toilet, separated, all that stuff. And then I decided what I'm going to do, because I thought I was going to die. I was so sick, and so miserable. Panic attacks every single day. I would sweat for no reason. I would go to meetings and I would just sweat. I got hives. It was horrible. I decided, if I'm going to die, I'm going to leave $1 million to my kids and my ex-wife. And I was going to give $60,000 to charity, because I just felt so bad about myself, and I was going to run the Marine Corps Marathon. And I've told this story before. I wound up running the Marine Corps Marathon. I wound up making the $1 million. Wound up giving the $60,000 to charity, and I didn't die. In fact, I was healthy. My career was rocking. And I had done a ton of self-help books, of listening to Brian Johnson's Philosopher's Notes, of listening to all kinds of books while I ran. And so there was a whole new world to that. But here's the thing, again, the improbability of having everything taken away from me, really crashing and burning, stone cold sober. I never took a drink, which really kind of, I had a lot of fights with God over that. I destroyed my life stone cold sober. I did everything right, God. And still, I couldn't make my marriage work. I couldn't make my career work. I couldn't take care of my health. Like, why is everything going wrong? And then I read a book by Pema Trojan. And by the way, you can read any book by Pema Trojan and get this out of it. But she said, when tragedy hits, you can either harden your heart or you can soften. You can either close down, be bitter, or you can open up. And I made the decision to open up. I made the decision to open my heart. I made the decision that my pain was going to be my connection to other people. And that's how I started climbing out of wanting to die. I was suicidal when I was 47, before I ran the marathon. I wasn't too keen on living after I ran the marathon, but I wasn't suicidal anymore. And then the next day I kind of was like, all right, I'll live for a little while. Then next year I was like, all right, I like my life. I'm good. I'll stick around if, you want me to. And then, it took about 5 years to that point where self-love. Oh my God, I love myself. I'm on the list. I'm a precious child of God. Like, it took years of filling myself with good stuff. Remember feeding the good wolf and feeding the bad wolf? Feeding the good wolf. The bad wolf with me is always there. Here's the other improbability. I talk about mastering midlife. I talk about integrity. I talk about discipline and making good choices. If you were in my head, you would know all the dastardly things that go through my head, the negative self-talk. And I talk about this on the show all the time. I am not a happy-go-lucky guy. I don't wake up every day going, I just love life and I love everybody. That's not my natural state. My natural state is pretty grumpy, pretty resentful, and pretty ungrateful. I want more. I want better. I want the newest iPhone. I want a better car, and I want to be thin and all that stuff. But I don't live that way. One, I don't believe my thoughts anymore. My emotions, my thoughts, not my business anymore. I do not live in my head, and it's such a relief. Oh my God, it's such a relief. I don't believe those thoughts anymore, but they're there, and I can grab them at any time, which is, again, why we do the morning routine. Because if I wake up grumpy, if I wake up self-loathing, if I wake up with any of that stuff, usually by the time I hit the shower, I'm just a completely different person. And it's not like I covered up the negative stuff. It's that I got free of it so that I could live my life. I live my life out of my heart. I live my life out of my connection to the infinite, to God, to whatever you want to call it. Don't live my life out of my head and my emotions. Most of my actions are from something else. I digress there. I don't even know where I went with that one. But anyway, the improbability that I'm writing a book called Mastering Midlife, that I host a podcast, Mastering Midlife, that I coach people on having better lives. The improbability of me, if you looked at me when I was 19, 20, 21, when I was homeless at 27, who would think this guy would have ever been rich? Who would think, and lost all that money again and then made it back and all that stuff. Who would ever think that I'd be able to raise children, and let alone have children, make a marriage go long enough and have a really wonderful divorce where we raised our kids together? Who would ever thought that guy could do that? And who would ever think that this guy could run his own business, have a 6-figure coaching business, sustain himself, be in a wonderful new, well, it's not new anymore, it's 8 years, my relationship with my partner, John. Who would ever think that I could write books? My grammar is terrible. I write books, make videos, do all this stuff. It's all improbable. And the message of my life, what I want for you in writing Mastering Midlife and doing this podcast, in actually living my life as large and as bold and as creative as I do, is that if I can do it, you can do it. I am not kidding you. If I can do it, you can do it. I want to eat pizza and cookies and ice cream all day. I crave bread and crap, waffles for breakfast every day. Like I crave crap, and I don't eat it. I do indulge, and as my partner John pointed out, I beat myself up a little bit too much. I do not have a healthy relationship with food, but I'm fit, and I do have a mostly very healthy diet. So I get it when you struggle with food. I get it when you struggle with procrastination. I get it when relationships are tough. I get it when you're mood and you're just sour. I get it. And that's why I think I can help. That's why I hope that this podcast is inspirational, because I get what it's like to be a freaking human being. There's the Lewis Howes and there's the Jay Shettys and there's the Tony Robbins of the world. And you can, if you don't relate to what I'm saying about that internal battle, then I'm not your person. And you can go talk to all those other people. For me, the people I care about are the ones who have that struggle inside and still want to have an amazing life. I have an amazing life. I accomplish amazing things. My clients have the same inner turmoil than I do, and they create amazing businesses, right? They make tons of money. They make an impact in their foundations and in their charity work and all that. And that's what I want for you. So Mastering Midlife, the book, Mastering Midlife, the podcast anthology, everything that I do is so that I can help you get free of the inner turmoil, any of the past beliefs that you had, anything that you think that's holding you back, because all of that is irrelevant to the life you can create from here. That's what I want for you. So I'm going to send this off to my marketing team. Hope this was what they were hoping for. But for you, this is from my heart. I love you a ton. I say that at the end of every one of these podcasts. I love you. You may not even think I know who you are, but I do. I just want you free. If I could get free, you could get free. If I can live this kind of life, you can live this kind of life. Um, it's here for us. So again, I love you. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of the day.